Teresa. Nice. Hey, y'all. I'm Stacy. I'm an alcoholic. Nice to meet you, Teresa. I've heard a lot about you. Thank you, Ali, for being so generous. 40 minutes, huh? That's a long time. What was I going to say? My computer is like 2010 or 2011. So I really need to get a new one, but I haven't done that yet. So it is what it is. I'm just trying to kind of pull up a screen that I can kind of stare at. I don't like staring at myself. So it sounds like I'm going to speak for 40 minutes on step 11. I just went to a 11 step meeting at about 2 o'clock, and there was about 13 people there, and we shared about God. And I think God's always a good topic to be on. It really is the mainstay of the program, the 12 steps. I mean, of course, we have to, like Sharon Crane calls it, God with skin, like we have to be able to connect with other alcoholics. But really, I think that we see God through one another for the most part. And then there's the spirituality that we try to touch base with. And I believe the only way we really connect with that is if we get still and quiet. If I get still and quiet for long enough, I usually start to cry. And I think that's a good thing. And I always think if, AA meetings, if only we could come in and just cry freely, I think that it would be such a good thing that we would do. If we could come in and just cry because we're sad or because we're happy or grateful, that would be really something special. I don't generally ask people anymore what's wrong, when they cry. I find it to be healing and beautiful, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with expressing ourselves. I learned that from you guys. I learned that from people that God put in my life whenever I first got sober. And you guys taught me how to be vulnerable, specifically Susan and Dana, two of my best friends, taught me to be vulnerable and to be open and to share openly. When I got to AA, I thought I had to, still be cool and, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and, wearing the rock and roll t-shirts and letting my hair grow long in my eyes and stuff, or whatever, and you think that you have to be a certain way. And there's a speaker, God, it's going to escape me. What's his name? Sue Drum, and the husband is Keith Drum. He shares about whenever he was getting ready to go to the meeting when he at first got sober, he put on his his cowboy outfit, his blue jeans, his jean jacket, and his cowboy hat, and he got in his truck and he went down. He's on his way to the meeting. He stopped at the stop sign and he goes, "No, this ain't it." And so he goes back to his house and he puts on a suit and tie and gets dressed up, and he goes outside and gets in his Lincoln Continental, and he drives down to the stop sign, and he goes, "No, this ain't it." And then he goes home and he puts on like his motorcycle outfit or whatever, and his Harley gear, and he gets on his motorcycle, and he goes down to the stop sign, and he's not, "No, this ain't it." And it just has always reminded me that when we get here, that we're just not quite sure who we are. And that's, it's okay, obviously, but if we come in, and I think if we're doing it right, we start to learn, that whole thing that says on our coin, "To thine own self be true." We start to learn who we really are on the inside and to be true to that. And we learn to have an opinion about, if do we want pepperoni or not on our pizza, or do we, want to watch a comedy or a drama, on the movies, or if we'd rather go bowling or shoot pool, things as simple as that. Because when I got here, I didn't have an opinion. I just kind of went with whatever everybody else wanted to do. And slowly over time, I've grown into, who I am. And I say all that, like, I'm not saying that it's perfect. Like today, I still have a hard time, sometimes with being honest or with being true to myself, with knowing what the right thing to do is. And that really is where the literature comes in. Our step. So the page 63, my third step prayer means a lot to me. That was the first pages I was ever told to read. I had about 6 months of sobriety. My friend Ben, who he wasn't my sponsor, he's just a friend. He said, "Have you ever read that prayer?" And I'm like, "No." He said, "Get on your knees and say that prayer every day for 30 days. It'll change your life." And when I got a sponsor that I was working with, who worked the steps when I was about 6 months sober, uh, I was told to read 86, 87, and 88. And I've been reading that on and off for years. And, what's funny is, like, when we get here, this is my experience. So when we get here, it's like new, and it's fun. And we didn't have cell phones. I got sober October 6, 1986, so we didn't have phones. And, we're all smoking cigarettes then, like nowadays, yeah, you see people vaping and stuff, but back then we were all like pretty hard cigarette smokers and coffee drinkers. And you get up in the morning and you'd have like a stack of meditation books. And the big one I think that most people had was the little Hazelden little black 24-hour a day book. And in the 80s, treatment centers were big. And so meditation books weren't as readily available as they are now. We didn't have YouTube to look to how to meditate. We learned it from other people. And and you never know what you were going to get, but to be able to, sit down in the morning and pull out the meditation books or whatever, and open to that page 86 and read Upon Awakening, before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. And it goes through and it says over and over that, we ask God, if we're not sure, we pause, and then, we ask for the intuitive thought or decision. And all that's important, because what I hear in New York AA is, just do the next right thing. And it kind of goes against what I learned from reading page 86, 87, and 88. It always told me to go to God, and I spent, time in the bathrooms, whenever I was scared or angry. And sure, all that's big whenever we at first get here. We don't know how to deal with that, and we probably haven't yet written an inventory, and so we don't know how to deal with it. And so for me to go and get on my knees in the bathroom and do, a third step prayer, or to ask God, like, this is happening and I don't know what to do, was the next right thing for me, was to go to a higher power. And the reason, I think it's important too to talk about why we do this, like why God, and you'll hear people much smarter than me say stuff like, "Oh, we lost power. We don't have the power. We got to get in touch with the power," and stuff like that. And the thing that I really relate to is like knowing that that I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable, and that whenever I drank, that I just wanted more and more and more. And that alcohol really did give me, a really great feeling. And I had very much a love affair with alcohol. When I got here, Budweiser, tequila, and Crown Royal were my favorites. But I was not, particular. I would pretty much drink whatever was around. I never drank wine out of a glass. I always drank it out of a bottle. I love champagne. That was out of the bottle. Whiskey, usually with a Coke or a Sprite, and then tequila was straight out of the bottle, and the tequila, a fifth, you just split it with your buddy, I just never ever got enough. And what I was taught in AA is that, we've lost the power of choice. And given any situation, for me, I believe that without AA, that I would be drinking. Like if you took me away from AA for 2 months, and when I say AA, I mean the steps, the sponsor, working with others, going to meetings, saying the prayers, all the things that I believe that we have to do all the time. If you took it away from me, I mean, I have no doubt, I think I'd be drinking within a couple of months. I don't think that I can stay sober of my own accord, nor do I take any credit for it at all. I just want to, on a side note, when I heard Ali talk for the first time, number one, I kept seeing Ali H, everywhere was talking. And I thought it was some chick. So when somebody, I think my friend Ali B told me about him, and I was like, oh, it's a guy, Ali. Anyway, when I heard him talk, I was moved mostly because of his humility. And I'm really, really drawn to that. I'm really drawn to someone's humility. As y'all all know, once the ego gets involved, it's just, it's scratching for the top. The ego wants to come out and take, credit for this stuff. And, I've done things, and look at me and pat me on the back and all this stuff. And, when I heard Ali talk, not only did he share about a higher power, not only did he inspire me with his share, he was humble most of all. And that's what I loved. That's what I love in any speaker. And I don't like to be, talked at. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of speakers that I've been saving to listen to, and I've been off for a few days. And the one that most touched me, and I was surprised because I've heard Ralph White talk before, and I don't remember it being anything, in particular, but I heard him share. I had a talk and I saved it, and I could hear the tone of his voice spoke to me in ear. And the truth is, he didn't have to say anything really profound. It was the tone of his voice. I could hear God in that. Anyway, the reason that we do this is because the big book tells me that I don't have any mental defense against the first drink. And so I believe if we do these steps and we help others, and we talk to our sponsors about our problems, and we go and we reach out to newcomers at meetings, if we're doing all the stuff, that I'll just go about my life and living in AA and living the principles of the program, and that I can go anywhere where alcohol is served and it's not a big deal. However, the mainstay of that is keeping in touch with a power greater than myself. And then, whenever we jump over to the 10-step promises, there's promises with all the steps. And then there's some steps that have this whole paragraphs of promises, and, the 10-step promises are my favorite. And it talks about the sanity being restored, and the problem has been removed. And, it lets me know in the book that my only defense from a drink has to come from a higher power. And so that's the reason that, it talks about, I think also on that page around where it goes from 10 into 11, about, the daily reprieve, contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual program. So what it's telling me is no matter how long I've been in this program, whether it be 1 day or 14 days or 300 days, that it's really imperative to me as a drunk to touch base with a higher power. And so what's so cool about AA is there was Jimmy Burwell, and he said, hey, in that third step, let's say God as we understand him. And, I'm saying him, because that's the way it's worded in the book. Nothing burns me more than to hear people changing literature in the meeting. I just want to say, it's okay if your God is female or whatever, but please just read it the way it's written. I find that, the newcomers need to adapt to us. I don't think that we adapt to the newcomer, like, welcome. I'm glad you're dying of alcoholism. This is how we did it, come, you're welcome. We're going to help you out. But I don't really appreciate it very much when people want to start changing it up whenever they're reading our steps, and that's the old timer stuff in me, but anyway, I'm slipping away from what I was talking about. So Jim Burwell was the one that said God as we understand him, and I just wanted to say that I have a lot of appreciation for that. And what I shared today at the 11th step meeting was, if I had walked in and y'all had said, this is a Christian organization, or this is a Muslim organization, or, that I can't curse, that I can't smoke, that I got to give up certain things, that you can't be gay, this and that. You guys didn't say that. All you said was that I had to have a desire to stop drinking. And when we got to step 2, I mean, I'll be honest, the first time I did it, I just kind of glossed over it. But it was so important to me, and it meant so much to me that I could come in and just be me, even though I didn't know who that was yet. And just, trust in a higher power. And so my first sponsor used to always say, God's on page 55. So if you're looking for God, God's on page 55. And so what it talks about is deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. And I remember when I was little, and going to the Baptist church, and I remember having that feeling inside, I mean, I felt connected, I felt sad, because I didn't have the humility as a child, to get out of the pew and go down front, because they call you down front. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to stand out, and so, but I remember having that feeling. And as a matter of fact, whenever I was hitting bottom in between treatment centers, I did say, God help me. And I say, I think that's the alcoholic prayer, God help me. Y'all probably said it. And, my parents, the first time I was in treatment, I was 17. And the second time I went in, I was 18. And my parents said, we're putting you back in treatment. And I said, ran to my daddy and I said, I can't go to treatment. He goes, why not? I said, I got tickets to Ozzy Osbourne on Saturday night. And they let me go to Ozzy, which I couldn't believe. They wouldn't let me go to Prince, and I wanted to kill myself, when I was like 14. But, they let me go. And on Monday I went in, and God's been with me the whole time. My friend Travis said this thing one time, and I really loved it. In the 9th step promises, it says we'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. And the thing is, he's always been doing for us what we can't do for ourselves, but we just now suddenly realize it. And I thought that was really beautiful, because I've tapped in to that. And it ebbs and flows, it comes and goes, it's good days and bad days. I think Mark Houston used to talk about discipline, And we don't hear that word much anymore, but I loved it when he would mention it because I knew what he meant. And he would say, he said, and y'all, I swear to God, when he said this, I was just like, I don't even know what to say to that. But he would say he'd get up at 4:30 to do his prayer and meditation. And at that time, I could easily sleep till 11 o'clock. And he would say, I can't wait to spend time with my God. And I mean, that's inspiring to hear somebody say that. I can't wait to spend time with my God. I believed him. I believed this man. I knew he got up and he burnt the sage and he did his, Indian feather, with the sage over him. I knew he had rituals and I knew he meditated and spent time with God. And it was admirable, you know. And anyway, he talked about the word discipline, and I do think we have to have certain disciplines. And I do think it says that, in our pages, we are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us. But I also, I believe in, I've never done this, but putting your shoes under the bed so you get on your knees and stuff like that. We have to kind of, or, being accountable. I get my sponsees to text me that they did it. And I tell them, I say, I'm not doing that to check on y'all. I'm doing that in hopes that I'll do mine. I'm hoping that I'll do mine whenever y'all are doing y'all's, But reading 86, 87, and 88 was the, mainstay of my stuff. And I wanted to share, that, whenever I was young in sobriety, it takes a village. So you get so much from your sponsor. You get a lot from your AA friends. And then hopefully we're hearing some good stuff in the AA meet. And, here in New York, we do a lot of meetings where the person will share and then everybody talks about that person. And I always think, wouldn't it be cool if we could all just pick a step and share on the step, like I need to hear what y'all are doing. I need to be inspired. I don't need to hear other people critique, what I said, or do all that. But anyway, when I was young in sobriety, they told me to get on my knees and pray. I had zero resistance against that. They told me what to do. I was like, fine with me. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted what y'all had. You had the bright eyes, you were laughing, I wanted what y'all had. You told me to get on my knees. I didn't have any issue with that. I had no fight against any of you guys. I wanted to believe what you were telling me. And I ended up getting a job. I was a galley hand out in the Gulf of Mexico. So I got sober in Lafayette, Louisiana. I live in New York City. I've been here for 17 years. Lafayette, Louisiana is the best place to get sober. I'll tell you that right now. And when I was out there, so the galley hand, what we do is you got to drive down to the coast, down to South Louisiana. And they put you on a helicopter and you fly out and you land on a production platform and then you're out there for 14 days. And I would help the cook and wash clothes, clean bathtubs, change sheets, mop floors, strip floors, polish floors, cut food. The cook would tell me how to make cinnamon rolls, and whenever we was letting the dough rise or whatever, he would say, all right, go smoke a cigarette. When you're done with the cigarette, it'll be ready. The dough will be ready. That's how we time stuff. It'd be like, because it takes about 5 minutes to smoke a cigarette. Anyway, it was always funny to me. But so I helped him. But there was a guy named Tippy, and he knew that I was seeking a spiritual way of life. And he taught me how to meditate. And he told me that you hold your hands like this, kind of like a cup, like you're holding a cup, and that you barely let your thumbs touch, and you hold it down here. And the breathing, the breathing in was, I think, the filling of the cup, and the exhaling was emptying the cup. And he said, you have to have a mantra. And my mantra was, be still and know that I'm God. And I know that's some of y'all's mantras. I don't know where it came from. I heard it from AA people. I think particularly my sponsor. And that's what I started to say. I'm just looking. I know I got a few 15 minutes, I think, left. And some random fella taught me how to meditate, Tippy. And whenever you breathe in through your nose and breathe out, you count, and you count 1 and blow out 2. And I say this mantra. And what you're trying to do is keep your brain clear and just think of the mantra. And if before you count to 10, if you get a thought that pops up that's not in line with your mantra, then you had to start over. And it was very important to me. And I remember practicing often. Today, I'm not as rigorous about practicing. I believe that we should, continue to seek as much as we can. And it is the seeking that's so important, like I don't think we ever land on anything, but the whole goal is, to have the spiritual awakening. The way the spiritual awakening came to me was halfway through my 9th step. I definitely had a spiritual awakening, and each step prepared me for that next step. And it came about, and I just remember it happening. I didn't know it was a spiritual awakening at the time, but what I was saying is, I've heard people start to talk about transcendental meditation or different types of practices. I've heard people go to Bali and do yoga, or go to India or whatever. And what's always made me laugh, and this is the truth, I think that alcoholics love like the ritual of it. Like it's nice to have that place in your house where you go and you sit, and the candle and the altar and the picture of whatever, and the AA coin and the incense, and and the certain music or whatever. And what's so cool now is we have all these apps and just different things that we can get into. And I do think it's important that in our AA meetings that we talk about, how do you pray? How do you meditate? What's your honest truth? I can't come up here and tell y'all that I'm like rock solid every single day. Now, I heard Howard P. talk the other day, and he made me laugh because he's got sober, I think, in 1973. I think he's passed, but he was like, he said he did meditate every single day for a long time. He said the first time he missed, he was having open heart surgery. And I was like, wow, And I love to talk to people who can do that kind of stuff. For me, I'm an undisciplined drunk for sure. But I want y'all to know something. Without a doubt in my mind, it's my higher power that keeps me sober. I don't take credit for a damn thing. And, one thing I want to point out too is like, if you're not sure about a higher power, one of the best things I've ever heard is go home and get out your notebook and write down every trait, every character trait that you would want in a best friend. And mine was, I've done this before, mine was funny, trustworthy, honest, caring, loving, understanding, all the things, And when I say that, it makes me think about page 99 in the 12 and 12, the St. Francis prayer. And I had all these things written down, and I'll tell my sponsees sometimes if they're struggling with step 2, I'll tell them to do that simple exercise. And when they write it all down, I'll tell them, I'll say, okay, now read it back to me. And then whenever they read it back to me, when they end, I say, okay, that's your higher power. And to see them be kind of blown away by that exercise, it just lets you know how simple it can be for us to choose who our God is. And One time I was sharing inventory with Bubba. Bubba R is my sponsor. He lives in Arkansas. I wouldn't take $1 million for Bubba. He's always having me look at the other side, and he's just wonderful, wonderful person. And he has the perfect thing to say every time I call him, And Bubba answers the phone, and he does because he knows I don't call unless I need him. And so I don't call him just to chat. And so when I call that man, he answers the phone. And what's cool is, like, I'll say, "Hey, are you busy?" And if he's not, I'll say, "Do you have a minute?" And then I get to the point. I run it by him, and then I listen. And he reminds me, he says, "You're calling me to talk. You're not calling me to listen. That's the truth." And he said, "We need to practice that when we call, that we do our share of listening, because he's going to present to me the answer to my problem." And one time I was talking about some stuff with some religious people, and my sponsor pointed out, he said, "You have to be careful, because sometimes religious people can be very righteous." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, and that's what I like about AA, is we live and let live, that we don't really have harsh judgments. Don't get me wrong, we go into meetings and we have thoughts, like, we're like, "Oh my God, here's this guy again," or whatever. And all that's kind of fun and games. And sure, we have thoughts and stuff, but for the most part, AAs are very sincere and genuine, and we just want to be helpful. And the main reason, is because it helps us. Bill stayed sober just working with others. Nobody stayed sober, but he did. And so I think that's vital. I have 8 more minutes. um I guess I'll share some about just, God put angels in my life throughout my sobriety. And they say that you live it, moving forward, and you understand it looking back. And an angel was in my life that got me down to South Louisiana. It wasn't something I expected. It popped up out of nowhere, and it was a woman that was happy, joyous, and free. And she told me she lived in South Louisiana in a halfway house, and that's what I wanted. And whenever I got kicked out of the halfway house, I was going to move back to where I did all my drinking and using. And another angel was in my life. He said, "Well, and he wasn't in the program." He goes, "Well, you got a job. Why don't you just stay here?" So I ended up staying in Louisiana. And throughout my life, God has taken care of me. And what I found, and what AA and God and you people have done, is like, I don't go in meetings and talk about the things, the outward things. I want to go in a meeting and talk about what's in here. I have peace of mind. I have contentment. You can't buy that. I have genuine happiness. I go to my job and I want to help others. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm asking God for assistance the whole time, because I need his help. But, you know, the gift is the sobriety. But if we keep looking, we see where God has given us so many things, has taken care of us. It's kind of like people, whenever you make amends with your last $20, and then you go home and you check your mail and you have a check for $20 or whatever. It's that kind of stuff. It's things that just kind of add up. I mean, and I guess the last thing that I'll share, and I share about this a lot, but I was having a real hard time, whenever a relationship broke up. And if you're a person that has put all your eggs in the relationship basket, and then it has failed you, please come talk to me, because we do that. My sponsor calls it a hairy power. We get a hairy power. anyway, the relationship had ended, and I was devastated. And I wanted to die. I didn't want to drink. I just didn't want to be in my skin, man. I was so uncomfortable. And I talked to my sponsor, and I was going through the steps. I was going to meetings. I was saying prayers. And I was going to work, but I wasn't talking to anybody, any of my friends. I was really, really in a bad way. And I was doing everything that I was supposed to do in AA, and I still was in a really bad shape. And I had 24 years of sobriety at this time. And I called my sponsor one day, and my sponsor said, "You need to go work with a newcomer," just like that. And I went to a meeting that has about 200 or 300 people here in New York. It's called Living Now. And I was late, I think, and I couldn't find a place to sit. It was packed, and finally I found a place to sit down. And right beside me was a railing, and a girl I sponsored, Courtney, was making coffee down there, or doing something with the coffee. The meeting had started already. And I leaned over and I said, "Hey, Courtney, who's new here?" And she said, "That girl you just sat beside is new." And I was like, "Okay, okay." And at the end, we got up and we held hands and we said the serenity prayer. And after, I said, "Hey, I'm Stacy." And she said, "My name's Victoria." And I said, "Do you have a sponsor?" And she said, "No." And I said, "I'm going to be your sponsor." And she said, "Okay." And I say that because sometimes, I needed it more than she did. It wasn't like, "Would you like me to sponsor? I'm going to be your interim sponsor." I tell people I don't interim nothing. I'm either sponsoring you or I'm not. And so she started coming to my house twice a week, and we started to go through the book, and I still sponsor her today. And that was 13 years ago. And she moved down to Florida, and I tried to kind of kick her out of the nest, but she didn't want. And so that's fine with me. I wanted her to get a sponsor. Back in the day, you wanted a sponsor where you lived. But anyway, God put that woman in my life, and we argue over who saves who. And halfway through that meeting, I didn't know this, but she had prayed for a sponsor. And it's just, it just brings tears to my eyes, because God is always taking care of me. And today I choose to acknowledge that. And I acknowledge that, the light in me sees the light in you. And I ain't got to be perfect. And I really do love that AA's taught me that, I apologize immediately if I harmed anybody. I tell my sponsees we don't harm people anymore. That's really a big, big deal. But the God of my understanding has just been, miraculous for me. And, most importantly, has kept me sober. I'll close with this. My most favorite line in the big book is on page 192. And if I ever get a chance to sign anybody's big book, that's where I write, page 192. And it says, "I came to AA solely for the purpose of sobriety, but it has been through AA that I have found God." And really, it means so much to me, that I can be gay and that I can curse and that I can do whatever, but that God shows me how to love others and be helpful no matter what. And God keeps me sober because I try to do his work, not his job, his work. And I want to close with that. But the last thing I want to say is I have a sponsee, and she was gossiping about this girl at work. And I was like, what I told her was, Joe and Charlie say, got to remove your defects of character when you stop doing them. And so I told her, I said, cut it out. I said, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to read that page 99 and the 12 and 12, that St. Francis prayer every day for 30 days. And now whenever she texts me, she says, I did the be nice prayer. That's what she calls it, the be nice prayer. But it really does take effect if we can say that prayer. It means a lot to try to understand and to be understood, because everybody's trying their best. Everybody's doing the best that they can. And so we need to just cut people that slack. And so that's my time. Thank you for listening. I want y'all to know I did not think that I had 40 minutes of stuff to say, but here we are. So thank y'all for listening. Love you.
Plan for me. And then, man, what else did you say? About, do the next right thing. Go to God. Duh. Hello. There we go. I like that. And, I'll share my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dina. Perry W., come on up.
Hello, Perry Alcoholic. Can you hear me? Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was listening to every word you said, and yeah, that was really good. I just have one question that's in the synopsis for step 11. There's a line that says there's a connection between self-examination and meditation and prayer. What would be that connection?
Hey, man, I love that question. I know what page you're talking about too. The best example that I can think of is it is I mean, all right, this is going to sound judgmental, but it's kind of like hanging out with church people that aren't walking the walk. Like are you walking what you're talking? And what that means is, like, if I'm doing prayer, meditation, and self-examination, I'm continually like taking a look at myself and trying to grow and change. And it is funny. I've always thought it was funny that we wait until it kind of affects us and then we work on it. Like, how come it's not where other people just come to us and say, you've upset me, you need to change? But my point is that sometimes I think if we go and hang out with some people that state that they're Christians, or that they belong to a religious organization, and they're still not I think that I think that we're the closest to what Jesus was, like, that we really do try to give and to forgive and to be a nice person and those things. And I think sometimes that people do have prayer meditation, but they leave out that self-examination part. And I think that there some people are not as pure and kind and loving as they could be. So I think the fact that the linkage with the self-examination that we do when we write inventory, and then do that 5th step, and then go to that 6 and 7, and then the 8 and 9, and we're completing all these steps, it means a lot. It really does help to, like they say, clean the pipe out so that God can use us as a channel. And I probably did not answer your question, but that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Kingsley T., Bronx, New York City. Come on up.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Kingsley. I'm an alcoholic. Stacy, yeah, I want to thank you very much. I'm sitting here in the dark. That's why you can't really see me. But quick question, like Perry said, I listen to you keenly. It's might sound like a vague question, but over the years, what has constant and steady meditation and prayer done to you inside?
Hey, that's so good of a question. There's a speaker in North Carolina named Tom Brady, and he's passed. But he used to say, the goal of this program is to grow down to be like a child again. And constant prayer, meditation, touching base with God for me has given me more of a pure heart and more of an understanding, knowing that I'm not the police and that I don't have to control you. And that's not so much from God. That is an AA thing that I've learned. What I love the most about touching base with a higher power every day is that when we sit still, that the truth comes up. When we sit still, the feelings come up. The feelings that we're trying to suppress, and push that stuff down, the stuff that we went to alcohol for, it comes up and we feel it. And quite honestly, we got 115 people in this room. I think if we all sat for 30 minutes, that we would probably, most of us would start to cry. And I'm not sure why that is, but it's just a special connection with the spirit on the inside. And that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Kingsley. Lana S., I was actually going to ask you. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. Great meeting. Stacy, I just love your presentation. It's so straight from the heart. I felt it. I felt your spirit, and very good to hear you share. Let me get to my question. So I do my prayer meditation, and I've made amends over the years and stuff. And in my meditation, I was thinking about someone I had hurt that I made amends to several times, not once. And I feel compelled to make an amends again, because I really did feel what I had done to the person. It wasn't anymore just on my list. I know what I did. I felt it. Like I felt what that person went through, because for the first time I identified I'd gone through the same thing. And it wasn't like this person is, that I've done anything. It just came to me. So I want to know, in your prayer meditation, when things come to you, what is your plan of action? How do you address things that come to you in your meditation, or as a result of your meditation? Thank you.
That's a good question. Mark Houston used to always say, I'm going to sit with it, to the point where I remember he made an amends to his son, and he thought it was funny because his son said the same thing. I'm going to sit with it. And that's what he meant, that he was going to sit with it in meditation. I thought you were going to ask me specifically if you should make the amends again. I mean, I've heard of two-way prayer, which is kind of like, you writing a letter to God and then writing back what you think God would say to you, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit focused on you feeling like you need to make the amends again, because the first thing that came to my brain was, to make sure that we've, and it doesn't talk about this in step 8 and 9. It talks about in the 12 and 12, but the forgiveness part about, did we forgive ourselves, kind of thing. And like, I heard a lady speak at the Florida State Conference that she was driving and killed the passenger. And so that some stuff is hardcore, for us. I don't know that we can, forgive. I don't know that we need to continue to go back and make those amends. But as you're saying that, I'm just thinking, that we call our sponsor. And listen, as my sponsor's talking before, I've been thinking, he don't know what he's talking about, like let me call 4 other people, or whatever, or let me, get the answer from someone else. But I'm telling you, what's so cool about AA is like, Bubba, my sponsor, used to say, the part of my brain that's missing, you have. And the part of your brain that's missing, somebody else has. And that's kind of how this works, is like, I don't see it clear. And so I do have to go to my sponsor and say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? Because I've called him. I was getting ready to get on the subway and go out to Queens and talk to somebody. And I said, this is what I think I should do. And my sponsor said, that's a horrible idea, you know. But you know, if God leads me to something, I think that's the honest truth. I think I bring it to my sponsor, you know, and say, this came to me, what do you think? You know, because I do think, you know, there's 2 places in the 12 and 12, and I can tell y'all what it is, what pages they are. But they say, you know, sometimes our thoughts turn out to be well-intentioned, unconscious rationalizations, or we get this deep emotional feeling and we mistake it for God, you know? And so that's why whenever we're just sitting with ourselves, sometimes we might get these feelings, and it may be, you know, something that we're creating because we think, you know, you ever like broke up and then you got that ex and you're like, oh, I need to go make amends now, you know, and it's not really because you need to make amends. It's because you want to see your ex, you know? So it's, yeah, we have to bounce it off of somebody. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Sin R, come on up.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm really grateful to be here, and thank you so much, Stacy, for your share. When you first kind of started off, you talked about God with skin on them, and somewhere you mentioned angels was put in your life, and that God has taken care of you. Do you believe that those angels that God put in your life not only took care of you, whether it was beknown to you or unbeknown to you, and how has it helped you increase your faith and get closer to God?
Thank you, Sin. So the way that I understand your question is, do I believe I'm being taken care of whether I see it or not? Absolutely. All the time. I know it. And then what was the second part again?
So has those angels that have shown up, have you realized it like from the beginning, or was it beknown to you right then, or did you realize as you went along that when you think about it, maybe in meditation, that some things come up when you're looking for an answer, and some things come up through the fact that God put those angels in your life, and you then realize that it could come out sometimes in meditation or just realization one day, maybe you're going through something and it hits you that that angel was put there, whether you needed it at that time or not. I'm kind of like all over the place, but I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to learn how not to overcome my fear of all these people on this online thing, you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to connect, you know.
Yeah. I think, you know, we always have to just strive to be true to ourselves. You know, I've heard God has a job for you to do and only you can do it, you know, that we're each, you know, that we're all connected, but we're, Marianne Williamson says, you know, all of us are special and none of us are special, you know, and, yeah, it's only in looking back, I don't see it in the moment. But what I love about what AA has taught me is lots of times that that rejection is God's protection saying, which sometimes things might not go my way. And I'll give you an example. Through God's grace, and it was no virtue of mine, I ended up in school and became a physician assistant. And that was a big deal for me, because I spent years in sobriety just kind of messing around. You know, I had a job, I was working, but you know, But God put that in my life, and then I was able to, but anyway, I was in a job here in New York that I didn't care for, and I was trying to get another job at Sloan Kettering. And I interviewed for plastic surgery and I didn't get it. And I interviewed for robotic surgery and I didn't get it. And you know what happened? I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was too fat. I didn't look good enough. I didn't interview good enough. You know, my hair, the way I looked, you know, I really got down on myself. Why can't I get this job? What's wrong with me? And you know what happened? I had a guy from one of the interviews call me and say, would you like to work in urology surgery? You know, can I offer you a position in that? And I said, yes. And so my point is, it's better than what I would have picked for myself. So God, you know, orchestrated that is how I see it. That I didn't get the job that I thought I wanted because God put me in this job. He was taking care of me, you know, even when I didn't know it. And so that's why we always have to just keep moving and keep trusting. But I do believe, Sin, like to thine own self be true, that we're at our best when we're being true to ourselves, meaning, you know, expressing how, you know, our truth. What is your truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Sin. Great job. Diana, come on up.
Hi, I'm Deanna. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Stacy, so much for your share. It was really good to hear you. Particularly, you said something that you choose to acknowledge God's handiwork in your life or something like that. And that really hit me because, oh, that's just my hand. Okay. That hit me because I have a hard time sometimes acknowledging God's handiwork in my life. It's like, of course God's working in my life. Like I'm 4 or 5 years sober, but it's hard to see how God extends beyond my sobriety. So it was just good to hear you. But I have a lot of questions for you. But my big question is, what have you found that works for you for like a morning routine or a night routine? I have a hard time striking that balance. I'm usually pretty good with morning. And then recently I've been rolling out of bed and onto Instagram, which is like the worst thing I could do. And then at night, you know, I have a hard time doing the step 10 or 11 stuff, but I'd love to hear what works for you so I could try and steal it. Thanks.
Well, you know, whenever I had your amount of sobriety, you know, I had read step 10 in the 12 and 12, and it talks about making they call it a ledger sheet, where on one side you write down all the assets for the day, and on the other side you write down all the liabilities for the day. So meaning like we look at the good things that you did, like I did my prayer and meditation. I helped an old lady across the street. You know, I tipped the Starbucks people or whatever, you know. I didn't, you know, whatever your thing. I didn't bite my nails or I didn't curse or, you know, I ate healthy or whatever. And then the liabilities being like, you know, I talked about somebody behind their back or whatever. But also, you know, we can incorporate, you know, the evening review. I used to do that. I'd write it down. Some people have a buddy that they trade that with, you know, my evening review. They answer the questions and then trade it with someone. I would say not necessarily your sponsor, just do that with one of your friends. But definitely, if you get tired, everybody should do 86, 87, and 88 every morning and do a third step prayer on their knees. That's what I think. But what my sponsor told me, if you get sick of reading that, you can read 60 to 63. So page 60 starts with the ABCs. A, that we were alcoholic and couldn't manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought. So you have to sought God, you know. So start with that, and then you end at the third step prayer, and it talks about the actor and how you're trying to run the show. And I was going to say, if you need enhancing of your spirituality, these are the 2 things I've always done that have always helped me. Read a spiritual book that really you connect with. Marianne Williamson's my favorite author, and listen to online AA speakers, especially if you're a young woman. Like listen to other women share. You know, can be so powerful and can really connect you to a higher power a little bit better. But the readings are important. But I want you to know, I'm Facebook and Instagram. I have to take it off my phone. I get what you're saying. We used to not have that, you know, we used to sit and, you know, but yeah, it's important that we set that aside, because that's not going to keep you sober, looking at that stuff. And that is a discipline. So take it off, maybe take it off your phone for a few months and see how you feel. I do that. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Kim B, come on up.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kim, and I am an alcoholic. Miss Stacy, I just wanted to thank you so very much. I listened to every word thoroughly also, and I really fell in love with your spirit a lot. And one of the things you have said, so many different things, that I would like to ask if you could please put your number in chat. I would love to be able to get it and call you. Also, you said the words, "Be still and know that I am God." And that, of course, we know that that's from the big book, but that are one of my favorite words, one of my favorite sayings in the bigger book. And I do a meditation meeting once a week. It is the first meditation meeting that I started doing after I drank and drove in a blackout, and I gave myself a TBI, a brain injury. But I'm grateful to be alive. I was at that Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco for 2 years and 9 months. But there was a AA meeting there that I found, and I always went every Saturday evening. And so that is still a meeting that I am able to do, and I'm still in touch with my first sponsor and everybody in that meeting that still used to be there. I'm very, very blessed to be able to still attend that meditation meeting, and I really would love to be able to catch up with you on a personal basis, because I wrote down several things that you have said, and then there's a couple question marks that I'd like to fill in too. So, but thank you very much, Miss Stacy.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm going to put my number now.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Babette.
Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm in my pajamas. Stacy, I had so many comments that I wanted to make. It took me all meeting to find a question, because I just so related and so enjoyed. You speak beautifully and so easy to listen to. I too got sober in New York City, and it just was, it flowed, and I wrote so much. Great direction. Okay, so here's my question. With a newcomer, do you take them through the big book? I mean, I got sober the way you got sober when I was in New York City many years ago, with the page 84 to 86. It was, and I was given a sponsor day one. I got sober at St. Monica's Church, and so, you know, I didn't have any wiggle room, which was good, because I was really moving around a lot. I wanted to get out. I had my own thinking, and my sponsor said, your own thinking got you here, and just shut up and go to meetings. And I can remember that because it was so harsh. She used those words, and I use them all the time. You know, I refer to them all the time. But may I just ask, when you're speaking to a newcomer and you're bringing her, bringing the program to her, where do you start? Thank you.
Hey, thank you. God bless you, man. That's awesome. It's awesome that you got sober here. I mean, so I got sober in Louisiana, but I moved here in 17 years ago. So I've been here for 17 years, but I was in Austin for a while sober, and in Buffalo, New York. The first thing I ask anybody is, I say, what are you doing for your prayer meditation? That's the very first thing I ask. I say, what are you doing spiritually? And a lot of them, I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, what pages were that? They've never heard of that. And I think that's where we're not really representing the program like that. Everybody should know those pages. That's like basic. Anyway, that's the first thing I do. And then they come to my house. And I do that because I can't focus in a coffee shop. I don't expect you to focus. Not only that, we're going to be getting on our knees together and doing some praying and stuff. And, you can't do that at Starbucks. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to do it at Starbucks. Not only that, there's a lot of music, there's people everywhere. And so I have people come to my house, and, so they come to my house, and I let them know too. You're not going to be at my house for 3 hours. You're going to be at my house for an hour to an hour and a half, and then I'm going to release you. Because I think they need to know, they don't know what to expect. I tell them to bring their book, get a real book. Don't come up here with the little paperback thing, get a real big book, because we're going to be writing in it. But we do the preface and the forwards in the first sitting, and then we do a chapter each sitting. And then whenever we get to that third step, we do a third step prayer, and then I immediately show them how to write the first part of the inventory. So I hope that answered your question. And then as we go, we keep going as we go, and then they come and we read. And so, yeah, we read together, and we relate. And I tell them, I'll get to know you later. Like, we're not having lunch and chatting, we're reading. And that's how I get to know you, through that. So you do have to set that boundary with them, because if you get a newcomer that's domineering, they'll take over. And you don't want that, Thank you.
Thank you, Babette. Lorraine, come on up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lorraine. I'm an alcoholic. Stacy, I just wanted to do the thing and stand in line and shake hands with the speaker and say thank you so much. I loved your share, and I always get so excited that they're recorded, so I can always go back and listen to all our talks here over and over again. So I'm looking forward to that with you. And you said so many things I related to. I do that. I'm new in sobriety. I just celebrated 18 months yesterday, and I do 86 to 88 every morning, and it's such a blessing. I mean, I so look forward to it. I could recite it, but I love picking up my book and putting it in my hands and just reading it and just taking the time with each sentence to go through, And when it says ask, I say the prayer, and it's such a simple thing to start a day, and it's so grounding, I mean, I'm grateful for that. And what else was good? Oh, I just thought it was so funny when you were talking about when people read the literature and they change stuff. And, being new in sobriety and going to like 1,000 or more AA meetings in a year and a half, it's funny how you just hear so many different things. These people do it this way and need to do it this way. And there's a woman like, hey, I'm new. Like, hold on. I'm trying to find my way into what's what. And I think that the only thing I'm really adamant about, being what it's supposed to be, is the column thing in the fourth step. It's like, it's got to be a column, and it's got to go top to bottom in each column, because it says list, and lists go top to bottom, and you don't go across. I'm like, that's, that I'm adamant about. But everything else is like, oh my gosh, how to take a newcomer through the steps. How do you do it? My sponsor always tells me you have to meet them where they are. She said, when I got sober, and she got sober in 1975, she said, I couldn't read a book. I was like practically wet brain. I couldn't read a book for almost 2 years. If somebody told me I had to do steps, I would have run screaming out the door. So it's good to know, you got to know your audience. You got to meet somebody where they are. And I just love being sober so much. And this Zoom thing is just, it's ridiculously wonderful and amazing. I'm actually sponsoring 2 women in Brazil. Okay. And, and they don't have sponsors in their community. They don't do steps. They go into the meeting and they go, here's your big book. Those are the steps on the wall. Do those. So she heard a friend say that she had a sponsor and she was doing the steps, and she said, "You said sponsor steps. How did you do that?" And so she gave her my number, and so we Zoomed. I was just going to tell her how to go about, and she said, can you do it?" I'm like, "Oh yes, of course I will." But because she speaks Portuguese as her first language, I get to say to her, "Okay, we're going to read it in English. Now I want you to go back to your book in Portuguese and read it again and tell me how the translation is." So it's like this perfect tool to make her read the literature twice. But anyway, I just love it. It's just so much fun, and watching these two women I've sponsored, to watch them, the light in their eyes. I've experienced what that is now, watching the light come on in two women's eyes, and it's just like the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. So thank you. It was such a great talk.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you.
We're a couple minutes over. If you could just ask your question, maybe possibly quickly, we could fit you in. Uda, are you there? We're a little out of time, so if you could just ask your question quickly, please.
My name is Uda, and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank you so much, Tracy. It was heartwarming to just have you speak to us and give us all the stumble blocks that we run into. And we don't really have to if we surrender. But I would like to explain one item. I was born near Lithuania, and we escaped from the Russians, and we were dreadfully afraid of the Russians. And of course, ultimately they caught up with us, and things did happen that weren't too pretty. But I was telling the story. We were doing the third step, and I was telling my sponsor about this happening, and she said, "Uda, you have to give up. God loves you." And those words bounced inside of my heart, and they stayed there up to this day and even longer. I feel that it is present. My heart, love, and a devotion for others comes from my heart. Thank you. Thank you, Uda.
Thank you, Uda. That was wonderful. That concludes the sharing and questions.